Oh, we're getting into the juicy questions. These are my favorite ones because this is how we get growth. This is how we get change. Next question. How do I tell my loved one they need help? So, so I'm assuming you go to the person, you say, hey, you need help. You're messed up. You do this, and it doesn't work too well. I say it somewhat joking. I don't want to discount the pain that we typically on the receiving end have. But what I do want to say is, well, I'll just ask you, because I know when someone tells me what I have to do, I don't hear it that well. So I'll ask you, when someone tells you what you have to do you sit there and go, oh my gosh, I never saw it that way. I am so glad you pointed out all my insecurities, all my flaws, all how I'm messing up in life. And yes, I'm ready for this. It typically never happens that smooth or that way, because once the weapons come out, it turns into an all-out war. And so that's why we help with interventions. We can do a lot of different things, even just over the phone, to help kind of prompt you and help you through the process if it's your loved one that needs to get help. But one of the things that we want to remember is I'm sure you've heard, it's cliche, walk a mile in their shoes. And again, when I say this, it's not to discount what's going on. A lot of times when we're working one-on-one with a family, they're thinking, well, I have a right to be mad and angry. It's like, yes, absolutely. But what is it that you're wanting? If you're wanting the other person to get help, I can tell them what's going on. But when a person is told something, they don't want it or they don't believe it. Now, when we ask a series of questions, that is where the person will answer, and they begin creating the reasons that is so painful in their own mind and what leads them to getting help. And this is one of the things that we found that really establishes long-term results. When a person comes in because we've asked the correct questions and they have answered the questions in their mind where they experience the pain. So a lot of the time, we actually got to cut off the enabling. I know it's not always that way, but from time to time, we'll see people that are enabling. And what I mean by that is when their loved one is making poor choices, they want to help out of a place of love and really genuinely trying to help them. They will jump in and they will actually take the consequences from the person. Now, we don't change unless the pain of staying the same is far greater than the pain of change. I'm going to say that again. We don't change as human beings until the pain of staying the same is far worse than the pain of change. Change is always going to be painful, and especially when we create all these stories in our mind. So if that is what I'm going off of, it's very, very difficult. But if I am able to say, wait a minute, look at the pain that I'm currently in, that is where we can begin that process. So how to tell a loved one that they need help is by being there, by removing the judgment. And I know it is so difficult, by putting yourself, and this is going to sound crazy, but stick with me, by putting your own needs on the back burner just for a moment. And to be there present with the person that you're speaking with, not from a place of guilt, blame, or shame, but a place of, here are my observations. One of the other things we look at is to bring data, not judgment or not ideals. So here's what I mean by that. You need to get help because you're going crazy or because you're out of control. These are all judgmental terms. So out of control to one person might be going on a rampage, speeding down the highway, whatever it is. Going out of control to another person might be, I went 5 miles over the speed limit. I was a little risky today. It's all subjective. So what we want to look at is to take a step outside of there and to get away from these evaluative tools or judgments and to use facts. So let's say if they no-showed, they said they're going to call or meet you and they didn't. That's the kind of things you bring up. Hey, and I know this is a very simple, we've had way greater issues, but I'm just trying to keep it very simple and even surface level to give you an idea. That is what you address. Hey, when you made a commitment the other day, you were going to meet me at 5 and it was 5:30, I began to feel a lot of different emotions. Here's the story that I made up in my head. Like here's how crazy it got in my mind. I'm thinking, oh no, they got in a car accident. I'm thinking, oh no, they might have met someone else and they left me. Like this is what goes on in my head. And I share openly with them. Like, here's how crazy my head gets. These are the 5 things that I potentially thought. And so when that happens, I really feel disconnected and I really get hurt and I want to spend time with you. And I notice I start to pull away when that happens. And so what I'm wanting from you is if you're going to be late, to call me before, or whatever it is, but you get the idea. We want to cover in the framework that we do in our center, we break down into steps and framework for every situation, because what we found is if we teach at too deep of a level or too abstract, it's not repeatable. But when we break it down into frameworks and look at certain questions to ask, it can be repeatable, and any situation can be inserted to that formula. So that's why it's, here's what was done, here is the story I created, or here's what I made up in my own mind, here's how I'm feeling from that, and here's what I'm wanting from you. And these 4 steps we've found work so well. And then once we get in there, there's a few different nuances that we can really address to get with, and that is the deeper stuff we get in treatment. But I wanted to at least give you some little nugget of wisdom of how to begin to explore that process to talk to that individual. And then one of the other questions was how to set boundaries. That's where we start setting boundaries, and we actually have training in here as well. And if you need help, please call us, because we can actually help you either over the phone, we can jump on a telehealth session. There's a lot of things we can do nowadays. But by setting boundaries of what you are willing and are not willing to tolerate anymore, and then allowing the consequences to fall on that person and not bailing them out, not going to help, even though inside you're thinking, oh my gosh, and when the manipulation starts, because a lot of the times I know when I was really unhealthy, I was so great at manipulating and having the other person think they were the issue when really it was me that was needing help, but I was too embarrassed to ask, and I was too insecure because everything was exposed. So hopefully that answers that question. If not, let us know and we'll go way deeper. But by using those 4 steps, and then the more nuanced things once you're in here, will really help you how to hold those boundaries, but it will also help you once they return, how to make sure that there's communication of what the expectations are.